Hello and welcome to the Knowing Show. I'm your host, Christene Marie. And tonight we are talking about how to live present. I was inspired to have this conversation tonight. I was flying and I looked out the window. I actually was sitting on the aisle seat, and I had no one next to me in the middle or window seat. And I just happened to glance out the window and I just saw the most beautiful sky. And it was funny in that moment, I felt like I had a decision. Am I going to stay in my seat or am I going to pick myself up? And like I had my laptop out, I had everything organized, and it's funny how in that moment, in that split second of, am I going to really truly be present in this moment? Like, yes, I was working on something and planning. Actually, I was planning for the future, is what I was doing on my laptop. I was working ahead on a project and making plans for this upcoming Friday and ordering things. And I was busy in the moment, but just looking outside the window and seeing the clouds and the sky, I made the decision to go and I like scooted 2 seats over, moved everything and situated myself, and it was the most glorious sunset for like 30 minutes. That's the fun of like when you're flying west in the US, it just the sunset keeps getting longer and longer as you keep going west. And so it was this elongated sunset, and there was this one moment when the clouds were just pink. Like I couldn't see the sun, but it was like we were just like in this cloud of pink, and it was the most beautiful thing. And then I looked out and it just looked like you could fall out and like go bouncing on the clouds. It was all textured and layered, and it was so incredibly enchanting. And then I saw slowly like the sun started peeking through, and I could see it cresting over the horizon, and it was so magical, and it was so stunning. But it was interesting in that moment for me to be present and observe and enjoy the beauty and like get to experience this very like truly magical moment. I felt so alive looking at the clouds and being so high up, and I got all this perspective in that moment. And what was so funny is that all it required of me was to lift up my eyes and look up and look out. And I realized, how much are we walking around with our head down, whether with our head down on our phone or head down, even in a book or with headphones in. It's like we're not really connected to the reality of what we're experiencing in the moment. And experience is something that was my prediction for 2026, is that experience is going to only increase in its currency effectively, where more and more customers are making choices based on experience rather than price point. And especially in this AI world where so many people are finding more meaning in technology than in real relationships because people don't know how to do relationships. Those who are able to offer real relationships and real connection, man, that is no longer a commodity. Relationship and human to human interaction, real relationship is no longer something we can take for granted. And so because of that, people who are doing the work, every single one of you tonight on the show, doing the work and cultivating ourselves, cultivating our mind, our soul, our spirit, our body, and being able to truly encompass the full range of human intelligence in the face of artificial intelligence and what the rest of the world is prioritizing. The rest of the world is prioritizing, the cultivation of technology, and really how do I get out of doing the work, and how do I actually speed up and make my life more efficient rather than be grounded here in this present moment and experience it for all that it can be. But with that commitment to experience, it's both the good and bad. Bad, I put bad in quotation marks. It's not just the happy go lucky, meaningful moments, it's also the hard conversations. It's also the moments where we speak the truth and it's uncomfortable and we don't want to. Even just tonight, I had this moment. I was getting picked up from the airport by a friend, and they were like, "Wait," they made a little mistake, and it wasn't a big deal. He went into the wrong lane, and he was like, "Wait, that said open, right?" Because he went into the lane that was closed. And in that moment, I had this strange realization and kind of almost like recollection over how many times, with even just driving with my dad when I was a kid, I would have probably lied in that moment because I wanted to make my dad feel good. Like, no, you wouldn't have gone into the wrong lane. No, that totally said open or green, open before. And it would have been such a subconscious thing, not that I was intentionally trying to lie, but because I wanted my dad to feel like he's the most wonderful man in the world, and he is. And so it was just so interesting in that moment. I realized if I'm not being present and I'm not fully here in this moment, I'm actually not going to say even that little tinge of truth that's a little bit uncomfortable. And I'm going to be subconsciously choosing the easy way out in so many different ways. And so the willingness to be in the present, the willingness to be here in the moment and to truly experience all that it holds, it's requiring courage to, like Theodore Roosevelt says, be in the arena and to do the work, but also we get so much joy out of it. And we also probably will feel a lot of the struggle and the frustration, and we'll probably experience the resistance, because when we actually are being present, man, it's like there's nothing like it. That moment looking out in the clouds and the pink sky, and feeling like, man, if I just was to hop out of the plane, I can like go bounce on the clouds. It was just so beautiful and so magical. And those little moments really bring perspective. So tonight we're going to be talking about how to live present. And before we really dive in, I just want to check in with the chat. Bungalow Truth, hello, good evening. Louisa, good to see you. Hi, I'm so glad you're here. Noon. No, this is live. we're live here tonight. Neil Hayden, good evening. Good to see you. RT. Thank you for joining. I'm glad you're here. Bungalow, good to see you. Mikhail, hello. We don't really talk like that on here, but you're welcome to stay. I'm glad you're here, but we don't really talk about that. June, yes, we can talk about that later. To be honest, I don't know if I have the best advice for you. He says, any advice on how to approach a woman nowadays, but we'll talk about it, because I frankly would love to hear what other people have to say as well. One of the things, just for those of you who are new here, one of the things about the Knowing Show is that we really open up the floor to hear from different comments in the chat, and we all kind of weigh in on what questions are on our hearts, or just kind of what's on our mind and what's going on. So I'm excited to kind of open up the floor to that question. Dilbert, hello. Lawye Gaiman, good to see you. Christopher Adams, to live in the present can be summarized by one Latin phrase: memento mori, memento vivere. Remember you will die, so remember to live. Marcus Aurelius added to that, determine how you react. I love, love, love this. Ugh, so good. Comic Flick, hello. I'm so glad you're here. Bruno, I'm glad you're here. Be authentic. Good to see you. My music Gen X. He says, how's your ceiling? Any more rogue fallings? Last night I was on the Knowing Show with you guys, and I just like heard this noise, and I like heard something fall, and I looked over, and there was like, it was probably like this big piece of like plaster from the ceiling. So funny. These, believe it or not, I recommend to my therapy group members, Christine, to help them out. Oh, wow. I feel so honored. Thank you. That actually that's really encouraging. Thank you so much. Be authentic. We just don't really kind of go in that direction here on the show. I really, really, my brother-in-law, my former, well, he'll always be my brother-in-law, but my brother-in-law, who was killed a decade ago, he said, he would always say to his wife, we're on the same team, why are we fighting? And so one of the reasons why, Be Authentic asked, he said, are you Democrat? And part of the reason why I don't go in the political direction is because I don't think that we, at least in the US, can talk about politics in a way where it's conducive to being unified and being on the same team. Like, I was talking to a UN's ambassador. I just like happened to, or no, I'm sorry, he was a senator, and I was sitting at a bar waiting for my flight, and he was sitting next to me, and he said, 20 years ago, we would be on the Senate floor, Republicans and Democrats fighting each other, and then we'd all go out for a beer afterwards. He said, it's not that way anymore. And so part of the reason why we don't talk politics on the show is because we haven't cultivated the tools to be able to disagree well. And hopefully actually being in the knowing community, we'll be able to do that. Um, but man, we haven't learned how as a country, and all of that kind of boils down to the individual level. So hopefully we can, and maybe honestly, maybe I will at some point bring up some fiery topics. But for the most part, we just don't really kind of go in some of those directions that are very polarizing. Alex, all good. Good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Deuces, hello. Bruno, no protein in cereal mix. I don't know what the context is there, but I love cereal. I don't know why. I feel like a child. I love cereal. Oliver Morg, hello. Good to see you. Thug Angel. Oh, thanks for coming on. Shirley Smith. So you're saying The Power of Now stuff by Eckhart Tolle. I've read half that book, or I've listened to it, and I need to finish it. But honestly, as I was listening to it, I was like, wow, this is so incredibly good. JD, Jimmy, good to see you. Swiss Chris. Stetson, Elijah, Benjamin, Charles. Hello, everyone. Thank you guys so much for coming. Benjamin says, why two channels? Honestly, to be honest, I didn't even intend to start on the Christene Marie channel. I just added that when I started going live. And then we started having a family here. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to stop going live on the Knowing Podcast channel at the end of March, and we're going to really kind of formalize the community on Christene Marie so that my team can kind of keep doing what they're doing with the Knowing Podcast when we start launching that again, and then we'll keep up the Knowing show. Bruno says, I drink tea, 5 o'clock. I love that. Dominic, good to see you. Thanks for joining. Valley, hello. Oliver. Oh, hue of light, man, manifested, human, manifestation of light. Ooh, it's funny that you say that. I was thinking about light earlier today. I need to lean into that. I feel like there's something here. I'm just kind of keeping my antennas up. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. I'm coming down. Lux Shampoo. Good to see you. Okay. My music, Gen X says, U.S. politics is too polarized right now. It's become ridiculous. Divide and conquer. It worked. Christopher Adams, a house divided by itself cannot stand. So I don't blame you for avoiding politics. Peter says, when you say unified, who or what are you in cahoots with, good or bad? Bruno says, I'm Bruce Lee in real life. Y'all, I think once you get polarized, we're no longer open. And there's so many important things for us to discuss. There's so many important things for us to grow in and cultivate. And part of those is let's get back to the basics. Let's work on the foundation of the house. And for me, it's okay, I've got to work on my foundation before I can then turn outward and start looking at other people and their foundation. So before I go and wag my finger at anybody on the political side, religious side, anything, let me go inward first and do the work. And it doesn't mean that they're not done in tandem with each other. However, am I being a good steward of the change that I need to see in myself in order to then go and make the real impact that is necessary? Or am I just going to go and contribute to the noise because I haven't done the work for me? Will my presence, talk about how to live present, what is my presence contributing to any given conversation? And so often my ability to physically be present with myself here in this moment, the more I can cultivate that, then when I am physically present with someone else, I'm bringing an energy into the space. We talk about David Hawkins assigning numerical value to different emotions. Well, if you are in shame, that's a really small numerical value. Shame is 20. Pride is 150. Okay, that's obviously an increase. Courage is 200. And you get higher up in the numerical value, the higher up you go, kind of on the emotional level. But here's what's so cool is that if I've been doing my work to heal, to forgive, to move up in that emotional numerical value, then when I'm in a group setting, such as one that might need to have some change, I'm able to actually bring a presence with me rather than being so low on the emotional scale that I'm in shame and I show up and I barely make a dent in the conversation. I barely make a dent at all in the room because I'm at such a small emotional state. But rather, if you and I are doing well, we're healthy, we've cultivated ourselves, then we can kind of enter the room with a real presence of being, of body, of mind, of soul, and spirit. And then when we're present with other people, it makes a real impact. I'd rather have that. Who is it? David Goggins. David Goggins talks about this. He effectively says, I want my presence to be a demarcation where people, they don't have to like me, but my presence alone forces people to basically rise up and say, I am going to be better. And I love that. I love that. I want to live that way where I don't even need to say anything, but my presence, my example, who I am is challenging enough. And y'all, people are watching. People are watching on social media. People are watching on an airplane. People watch you and they watch me. We're all being observed. And so then the question is, what is the presence we're bringing into any given room, any situation, any environment? What are we cultivating in the background in moments such as tonight and every morning when we go live on the show? What are we cultivating? What are we building? And so, to your point, Christopher Adams, a house divided against itself can't stand. All right, well, what kind of a house are we actually building? And who are we actually standing with? We talked last week about being the top 1% of our own capability. What is my ultimate potential in terms of my own echelon of 1%, not in comparison to other people, but in and against, it's like me against me. And that's the fight of my life is me against me. What is my own potential? Because no one else knows what my potential is except for me. Maybe people will get like a window into it and they'll like see a picture and call me higher, but no one else will really know. It's like me and myself in terms of even like my own conscience. Am I doing right by the person that God made me to be? Am I walking in fully in my calling? Am I being brave? Am I challenging myself? Am I doing hard things? Am I actually putting myself in environments where I'm challenged and I'm going to cultivate myself as a result of that? Just jumping back into the chat. Adrian, good to see you. Tim's channel, hello. Poochni, hello. I'm so glad you're back. Belzek, I don't know. Dominic, hello. Defalos, I don't know what you're saying. I'm sorry, but hello. Firla, hello. Quora, good evening. Jonathan, Alex. Thank you, Alex. Kevin, I am 51 years old. Now, back when I was a young kid, my stepmother severely abused me until the age of like 15. Growing up as a teenager, it was hard. Now that I'm an adult, I'm having trouble getting a wife. Oh, I so appreciate you being so honest with that. And that's so hard. Kevin, I was hosting an all men's retreat. I've hosted a women's retreat, a couples retreat, a men's retreat, and in the men's retreat, there was 5 men. I think it was 5, and each one their fathers had left them, and it was really, really interesting. And that was not planned. That was entirely like that's just who showed up. And it's always interesting when it's like, oh, that felt like divinely planned because I didn't plan it. And one of the things that was really interesting was reflecting on, okay, if your father abandoned you and you didn't have a strong male figure, well, then what did that teach you about women by how your mom showed up? And it was really interesting hearing how, the mothers really did their best and some of them really failed. And that has now negatively impacted the way men experience women. And it's been like very, very devastating to try to undo that. And I just want to encourage you that I feel like that's so normal that if you've had abuse from whatever gender, that really can do a lot of damage. And so I just want to encourage you that it's normal in so many ways, and you wanting to have a healthy relationship with a woman and getting a wife and loving her well. I just so respect that, and I cheer you on because it's a worthy endeavor. We were so meant for companionship. There was this moment when I was reading, uh actually, I was just kind of, I don't even know if I was reading, but I was just reflecting on the biblical story of the creation of the world, whether you believe it or not. It was just a beautiful, beautiful story. And I believe God created the world. And I don't know the sequence of it all, but I do believe there's a creator. And in the story, as it goes in the biblical text, it says that God created a man named Adam. And Adam and God were kind of like co-creating the world. God was creating the animals, and Adam was naming them, and he lived in this beautiful garden, and it was perfect. There was nothing wrong. He lived in this perfect world, and it says Adam walked with God. And even in the midst of that, God said, "It is not good for man to be alone." It was so interesting that God chose that word alone after Adam was surrounded by so many animals. He had so much work to do, and he was with God. Like, what more perfect environment is that? And yet it was not good. It wasn't good. It wasn't enough. And so this desire for companionship, this desire for a wife is so incredibly good. And so this is what I've come to believe based on my experience. If it is good, there is a way. And so long as if I can say this, and I hope you can hear my heart here, if you're willing to heal from the past with your stepmom, I think that there's going to be a lot of freedom on the other side to experience a woman for who she is, not your past experience. Because if we haven't healed from the past, we bring the past and project it onto the present. So, this whole question of how do I live present? So much of it is actually letting go of the past and healing from it so that I'm not projecting. I'm not seeing the present through the eyes of the past. I'm also not viewing the future through the eyes of the past. If I have not healed, I'm bringing everything from back there with me here and projecting it onto the future. So, if we're not able to exist in a relationship with somebody else around us and we keep feeling like we're entering into these loops and these patterns, then maybe there's actually something from the past that we need to heal from, let go of, maybe even forgive. We were talking about forgiveness a lot this morning on the Knowing Show, or in the morning show. And we were talking about how forgiveness is for us in so many ways. It lets us go from that person rather than like holding them by their neck collar and saying, "You owe me." And sometimes, it's not, forgiveness alone isn't enough. We were talking about that this morning. The next step is, okay, well, then how, if I've let go of them, if I've forgiven them, okay, what's the next step for healing? And it could be, what's the old program? What's a program about women that was developed during that time that I'm now having running on repeat across all women today? And so looking at the narratives and the patterns, the knowing framework is something that I frankly, I just kind of stumbled upon in my own healing journey. And the knowing framework is effectively the answer to these three questions. One, who was I? What were key moments and experiences in my life that shape a narrative, a view of the world? And so this example of this experience with your stepmom abusing you, that is so incredibly devastating, and that warrants to be grieved over. That's not how it should have been. that should have never happened to you, that's unjust and unfair and not right, and that is not how God designed this world. And that is I've just it's grievous. It really, really is. It makes me so angry, and all of those emotions, it's grievous, there's anger, there's deep, deep sorrow over that. All of those emotions, if they haven't been moved through, they're still in your body, and whatever narratives were established about women because of that abuse situation, then that could very well be running subconsciously in the back of your mind. So, I think that in the forgiveness, in the moving through the emotion of grieving or anger or sorrow, like moving through it and allowing that to come forth and come out, then on the other side of that is, okay, what would healing look like if I was gonna have a new program running around women? So the knowing framework is, who was I? What was that? What were those moments and what were the narratives that were established? And then the second question of, who am I? How are those narratives showing up today? How is that shaping who I am here in this moment and my relationships with other people? And then third is where it's effectively writing a new target, a new program. Who do I want to be? Well, how do I want to engage with women? What is true? What's a higher capital T truth beyond just my experience? What does God say about myself and what does God say about these other women? What is my role as for you as a man? What is the dynamic that as it was supposed and designed to be in the beginning? And so asking some of those questions for me has been helpful in my own healing journey. But I would love to hear other people's perspective here when it comes to engaging with women. How have you been able to kind of do that and heal in different ways? And y'all, this might even be a good show to do just in general, like talking about how to kind of get to the other side. Um, I'm Oh, I'm sorry. I just noticed she's behind in the chat. Um, Adam, yes, this is real. um, but I hope that was helpful, and I would love to hear, if you guys have other like thoughts or how to support here. Christopher Adams says, after forgiveness and forsaking bitterness, it is true to Scripture to set healthy boundaries and pursue reconciliation, if at all possible, when the offender is repentant. That's so good. Um, Alex all says, you're letting yourself off the leash. That's so, so, so good. Um, mm, just looking through some of the chats here. Um, hmm. Uh, Benjamin, narcissistic abuse. Mm, wow, Benjamin. My body morphed out of abuse. Oof, man, that makes me feel sick to my stomach. Isn't that so true? How our body literally reacts and almost like contorts. It's wild. The abuse side, whether it's emotional, physical, spiritual abuse, there's real spiritual abuse. Actually, one of my dearest friends has really experienced spiritual abuse. And that was another knowing retreat. I had a retreat at the beginning of this year, and this woman was sharing how her husband has really suffered from spiritual abuse, and it's just so hard to recover from that. Forgiveness is a healing tool. I love that. Um, hmm, so good. Bad company corrupts good character. Um, y'all, I'm just jumping down here. What question was asked is cheap therapy? What did you say? I'm going back up to your chat. Okay. Eric says, is cheap therapy better than no therapy? Ooh, that's such a scary question. Um, it can be cheap therapy and you can have an amazing therapist. I actually don't think that the cost determines the quality. You can have the most expensive therapy and have a bad therapist. I actually went in with two partners and we purchased a treatment center a couple years ago. And the woman that we purchased it from, we actually ended up having to give it back to her because it just wasn't a conducive situation. And honestly, it just wasn't, she was struggling herself. And so, um, it's sometimes people will pursue therapy because it's they really need it for themselves. And then, even, yeah. Anyways, cheap therapy for me has never been an indicator over whether it's going to be great quality or not. And expensive therapy isn't usually a sign either. I will say I have found that the degree to which I'm doing the work, I then can take to my therapist. And I've had a couple, and I can say, hey, this is what I'm working on. These are the questions I'm asking myself. What am I not seeing? Can you add a different perspective? Can you challenge me to go deeper? And that's been amazing. And I kind of started therapy that whole time. I actually started therapy and started reading Brene Brown's Daring Greatly. And by my own internal individual work, they then could kind of come in and help me rather than me going to them and saying, okay, what do I do in life? I was kind of already doing the work. So I would say if you're considering therapy, man, I would really encourage you to start asking some questions. And I would start with, what are 3 core defining moments in your childhood? And ask those questions. Who was I? What are 3 core moments in my childhood? What happened? How did I feel? What are the mindsets and the kind of framing of the world and narratives that were established because of those experiences? And then how does that manifest today? How does that show up in my relationships? How does that show up in my life? And then what is a new target? What's a new program in place of those? I would encourage you to start with that if you've never gone to therapy. Those will take some time. And I think even moving through, wow, that's really painful, or that really hurts. I think that could reveal a lot to you. Okay, just scrolling down. Okay. I hope that was helpful. I'd love to hear your feedback on that, on your question, though. I think that would be, about women. And I just know that there's a lot there. And I've heard a number of folks talk about, relationships with women and how this is just kind of like a dicey topic right now. Um, Whoa, Anthony, I got molested by a priest. Is that considered spiritual abuse? That's abuse, like, in every way. First, I'm so sorry. My gosh. Mm. I hope, man, I really hope that you're doing okay. And I'm so grateful you're here. And I just really, really respect you for even just sharing that and for where you are today, guys, to be able to move on and keep living after going through something like that. Each one of us has these stories where it's like so awful and it should have never happened. And so that's partially why we're here together, to do the work together, and so that we don't have to move through life alone. So I would say, Anthony, that's primarily physical abuse, but I don't know what the context is. And I would say it's also spiritual abuse, because the thing is that the priest is putting himself in a position to effectively say, I'm going to mirror God for you. And so that is a complete distortion of the heart of God and the Father, like the Father God. And that is just so devastating. And Anthony, God bless you to heal that part of you, you know. I'm so sorry that happened. Patrick Rowe, it's good to see you. Um, mm, just looking through here. Wow. English says, my therapist was meant to be a professional, but she seduced me in my session and took advantage of my innocence. Wow. Y'all, it's so wild how it's like these people in positions of leadership, these people who are supposed to be a safe place. And that is exactly, like I talked to earlier about, experiencing resistance. Isn't that the kind of resistance? That's like the kind of thing that's going to mess with you, is that go and be vulnerable and open to somebody who's supposed to take care of you. And then they're going to be the ones that really, truly turn on you. And so I just want to like, man, I'm so sorry, and we were talking this morning. This is wild. What a turn of events. We were talking this morning about this story of this man who was like thrown in prison and ended up being able to, because he was thrown in prison, because he was betrayed by his brothers, he was able to save like literally a country. And he told his brothers, what you meant for evil, God meant, or God intended for good, or God used for good. And so, in every single one of these situations, I really believe that even in the midst of all of this, there is an ability to use it for good. And maybe even there's the very purpose or mission of your life could very well be revealed in this pain. I've been seeing just these stories of these people who have been born without limbs. They're missing an arm, they're missing arms and legs, and they've alchemized their story, and they've allowed for that to really, man, just change their entire trajectory of their lives, and they now are like able to give and love on so many people. So mm, I hate to hop off during this time. I'm so sorry to jump, y'all. I know that this is such a good conversation, and y'all, I do want to say, with us, I'm gonna be kind of brainstorming. My goal of this upcoming week is to finish writing my book, or copy editing my book, and then on the other side of that is kind of building out the bones and the framework for the knowing community. Because what I hate is if I jump off and the chat stops. I really want to like have spaces where we can keep chatting with each other, and you guys can keep moving through, because the conversation we're having right now is so, so, so good. So I would love for that to be the case. Trevor says, "Are you talking about the story of Joseph?" And yes, I was. I was talking about that. Um, Christopher Adams says, "To be betrayed by someone requires that you trusted them. I prefer people earn my trust, but that doesn't compromise my desire to help my neighbors." That's so good. And I will say, when you're a child and you are betrayed at such a young age, it teaches us a narrative. It teaches us a story. And the question is, what is that new narrative? So, y'all, I'm sorry I have to go. I will be back on tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, and let's just continue our conversation around this. There's a lot of really, really important things being shared. So, um, thank you guys for joining tonight. I'm so grateful for each one of you. And um, I'd love if you guys are willing to join tomorrow morning. I'd love to pray for each one of us, whoever wants to receive prayer. I would love to just pray with you and for you. And um, I just know that there's a lot of healing for all of us. So thank you guys for joining tonight. And I will see you in the morning. And God just bless all of us, for what we're moving through. I'm just really encouraged that each one of us is willing to grow and that we're doing the work. I think that says more about you than anything else. So kudos to each one of you guys. All right. Have a good night. Bye.